Boom, 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 boom. Grab the thing. You're ruining my skit. Grab the thing. Well, that didn't work out as well as I hoped it would have. All right, standard YouTube intro. Is Final Reckoning the perfect send-off for Ethan Hunt? Let's break it down. Hey guys, my name is Brandon, aka the BrandoCritic. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really do appreciate it. I was able to see Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, Mission Impossible 8, and I'm here to give you my honest thoughts. No spoilers. So I thought I would start the review off by saying this. There's something that happened to me in this viewing experience, in this screening, that has never happened to me before. I think that as movie lovers, we can relate to certain experiences, holding the edges of our seat, being really excited, but this has never happened to me before. There was one moment in this movie where there was a quiet moment and the entire theater at the exact same time went like this. A huge sigh of relief. Now again, I won't spoil what moment that was, but I looked around and I felt this sense of magic in my heart. It's very cheesy and very, warm and cozy and whatever, but I could feel it. That's when I knew that this movie was something special. Now, earlier on in the screening, I'm like, yeah, this movie's amazing. It is great. But that moment told me that this movie was special. This is the 8th Mission Impossible movie, and people will be asking the same question over and over again. Well, how does it stack up against the other Mission Impossible movies? And it's a pretty fair question to ask, especially when it comes to franchises. Is this the best one? I hate when people kind of do that. I'm gonna break my own rule here and say that I think that this is, I've only seen it once, I think this is the best Mission Impossible movie. And trust me, I've been guilty of giving out that 5 out of 5 rating way too soon, right? I remember seeing Spider-Man 3 when I was 12 years old, and I go, it's the best one. Like, this is the best movie of all time. Oops. To go out of a big movie like this and say, this was the best one, this was the most epic, the most intense movie I've ever seen. That's how I feel. This movie is amazing. I've never felt this good walking out of a Mission Impossible movie before. And I've had some good experiences. Rogue Nation, Fallout, this is a great franchise. And the reason why this is the best one, I think it's a very simple answer. It's because they always outdo themselves and they deliver on what the audience wants. Now, the first Mission Impossible movie, it's a Brian De Palma film. Like that psychological drama. Yes, there's lots of action, there's lots of suspense. It's a great movie. But what is the main selling point to this movie? Seeing Tom Cruise do death-defying stunts, intense action, some humor in there, and an overall exhilarating time at the movies. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning delivers that in spades. Simply put, like, you're not going to this movie for the deep character study that is Ethan Hunt. Of course they do go into some character moments in this movie, of course they do. But it's like a circus. Come see the amazing action man Tom Cruise do this death-defying stunt. You see it in all the marketing, all the posters. It's what stunt will he do? And in this movie, there's two big ones: the submarine and the plane. I don't think I've ever felt that intense in a theater in my life. Again, I try not to use these cliches and I try not to go over the top because, again, I hate when every single movie that a YouTuber or a reviewer or a critic or just any film lover automatically, it's the greatest thing of all time. Take it, the submarine, okay? You have every phobia that you can think of under the sun and you put it in that movie. Fear of the deep water, fear of darkness, fear of drowning, large objects in the water, claustrophobia, time running out. Is there like a fear about like running out of time? Every single thing adds on, and they have this part of the score as well that I noticed. Again, the score, maybe that's a nitpick I'm just thinking about. I would have loved to hear the Mission Impossible theme more. There isn't any big standout musical moment except for the submarine scene. You see those videos on TikTok of like the big, monsters underneath the sea, or you see like those big ships almost getting capsized and there's like that, whoa, like that throat singing type of sound, and that is playing when Tom Cruise is swimming down to the submarine to get the entity, right? I don't think it's a big spoiler if you've seen the first movie. It's marketed that way. My God. Again, I don't like to say I was holding the edges of my chair. I was on the edge of my seat. My heart was like tight. During these sequences. Mission Impossible, why do you go see it? You want to see death-defying stunts, you want to be entertained, and you want to be exhilarated. And this movie does it perfectly. And then of course you have the death-defying stunts on the plane, but that scene doesn't work just because of him doing that on the plane. It's everything leading up to it. Every single character has something to do, and that's another thing that I've always loved about these movies. It's not just the Tom Cruise show, it is a team effort that every single thing has to go right. If one person does one thing wrong in a blink of an eye, if they don't do it, end of the world. Everything has to go right. It does feel like an impossible mission. Every single character has something to do. Every single storyline is woven together so perfectly, and the big action moments are set up so perfectly. It's not just big stunt for the sake of being a big stunt. And that's the thing why this movie is so impressive, is that it did top the other 7 movies. What I felt was an impossible mission was to top Mission Impossible Fallout. I'm thinking, how in the world do you get bigger than this? And that is what you want from movies like this. When you have the main selling point of the movie is how big of the stunt it can be, you need bigger, you need better, you need more intensity. And this movie delivered. I cannot believe they did it. Another thing too that I want to talk about is the villain of the movie. Now, I can understand why people have some problems with the entity, the nitpick of this all-powerful AI, and there's a lot of lines in the movie where it's like the entity wants this to happen, the entity knows this and knows that, and what does it want you to do? What does it want you to do? I can understand why people would think that's kind of lazy storytelling, where you just have like this all-powerful villain and, oh, yep, they can do anything, kind of like the will of the Force, and it can just be like a plot device going, how does this happen in Star Wars? Oh, the Force, boom, done. The reason why I don't have a problem with it is because in a movie, especially an action-adventure movie, when you have a villain and the villain has their evil plan, generally speaking, when you have a script, you have your protagonist and they want something, and the protagonist is trying to do the thing, and then they change throughout the movie. In action, it's almost in reverse. You have your antagonist and they have the motivation, they have the want, they have the need. The entity, I won't spoil their evil plan, but they have a plan and they want to execute it, and it's up to our hero to stop it. And when you're thinking, I don't know if our heroes can stop this, when your villain is so powerful and you feel like they have complete control over our hero, it makes it even more satisfying watching them try to overcome this threat. That's why, again, I've talked about this before, but it's an unpopular opinion. That's why I found Loki in the Avengers to not be the greatest villain in my eyes, because you have a character who was bested by one of the characters in a previous film, and now he's back trying to get revenge, and now you have an ensemble with that character who beat him in the last movie, and what's his motivation? He just wants revenge. He wants power. I find that kind of boring. Whereas the entity, I'm thinking, okay, you have to get absolutely everything right in this sequence of events. And again, I don't want to spoil anything because it's wonderful. It's so wonderful. But you're thinking just everything needs to go right and you want it to happen. You like these characters. Tom Cruise is a likable guy. He doesn't give the most range in this movie, of course. Oh, we know what you're up to. One last time. Luther, I need you to trust me. Benji. Again, it's a one-note performance. Like, let's be real. But you get everything that you need. It's not a bad performance. And of course, he surrounds himself with a great team. Haley Atwell's great. Simon Pegg's great. Everyone's great. It really does feel like the mission is impossible. How in the world are we going to defeat this thing? That's the drama. That's the excitement for the audience. Now, I'll talk about Mission Impossible as a franchise and how it relates to this movie. This movie also does something very well that a lot of franchises have tried to do and have failed miserably at. Star Wars, Transformers, even the MCU to a certain extent, and that is trying to wrap up a franchise or have a movie and you bring in other elements from all the previous movies and tie it up in a nice little bow. And maybe a little bit of retconning as well, where they kind of rewrite the previous films going, oh, the MacGuffin in this movie actually does this, it links to this. And that can get into some trouble because once you watch those older films and you know the context of future films, and of course those future films weren't planned yet, it can fall apart sometimes. But what I like about this is that a lot of plot elements from previous movies are brought back, not just as callbacks, not as just like wink winks to the audience. And because we've seen so many Marvel movies, I mean, heck, there's a movie with Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland all together as Spider-Man. We've seen it all. We've seen all the callbacks. Nothing excites us or is impressive anymore about that. But what matters here is that characters come back and they are a vital component to the story. A character that you wouldn't have thought would have been important back then turns out to be very important now. And it doesn't negate their sacrifices. It doesn't negate their place in the previous stories. I won't spoil anything. Again, I'm trying not to, but there's a big plot element of Mission Impossible 3 that I thought could have been better fleshed out, and they bring it back here and it leads into this story. And it's like, oh my goodness, there was a big key for this story all the way back here. Of course, they didn't know that, but it all fits together. And it's a great callback and it's a great homage. If you're a big fan of Mission Impossible, then it's going to be a love letter to you guys. Like myself, I was really happy to see some of these old characters again, some of these old plot elements come back, and it just feels like it's back to basics. I mean, a lot of the characters in this movie and a lot of the technology is analog again because of the story. The AI is basically taken over cyberspace. There's no internet, or you can't use the internet. It's not reliable. The kind of plot element I'll give away. So a lot of characters and a lot of, people in boardrooms, it's all analog again. And it feels like it's taken itself back to its roots in that way. Of course, you think of Mission Impossible and just high tech everything, but you know, you have like dossiers with paper, and you have like big war rooms with actual ships, like little miniature ships, and they have like that pool stick where they kind of move it around where it looks like it's, you know, I don't know what it's called, but it feels like a nice bookend to this franchise. And again, there might be more movies to come. They actually do leave a little bit of an opening for a sequel, you know, never say never, right? But I do think that this is a great, satisfying ending to this franchise. Now, I heard one piece of criticism that this movie has a very slow buildup and there's lots of exposition. Yes, that's true, but I think that's not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. Yes, there was one moment where I'm like, okay, it feels like we are really dragging out the slow part, but you just know that that big exciting moment is gonna happen, and they make you wait for it. They really do make you wait for it, but it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. I'm gonna give you my rating right now. It's 5 out of 5. It's 5 out of 5. And I'm really happy that every single year there's been that one big blockbuster that has just rekindled my love for movies. You know, I don't want to get into this whole topic where it's like, oh, blockbusters aren't the same anymore. I've made enough videos about that, but there's always one or two that just come out and are awesome. And there's a moment like that in the theater where everyone sighed. And that reminded me that movies are special. And this movie is special. At least to me it is. So there you go, guys. Those are my thoughts on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Let me know yours down in the comment section down below. Let's get a discussion going. And I want to shout out my Patreon members as well. If you want to join our exclusive movie club, the link is down below. We have watch-alongs every month. There's giveaways. It's a great time. And you guys get to support the channel and we get to know each other more. So the link is down below if you want to support the channel that way. And without further ado, it's been a while since I've made one of these videos. It's been a lot of fun to come back to do one of these, and hopefully there'll be more. More videos are going to come soon, and I'll see you there. Take care.